Welcome back. Hey, it's Daisha D.
And it's Jay Stain.
And you are watching In Retrospect podcast. We look beyond the surface to find understanding.
Bring you laughs, knowledge, and culture.
So sit back, relax, and join the combo. So today we have a very special guest, Minister LaShondra Lias-Lockhart, who is the founder and executive director of D by G Ministries, an organization that affirms and celebrates all people. She is also an outreach pastor of Fresh Fire Community Church in Louisville, Kentucky. She's married to LaShondra Lias-Lockhart and has 5 children. She's dedicated to serving God's people and helping them to understand the difference between being tolerated in the church versus being celebrated. We're very excited to have you today.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much. Thank you.
So as time goes on, I feel like for the most part, we're starting to have more conversations about LGBTQ plus related people in the community. But there's still some catching up to do, I feel like, and there's still a lot of learning. I know I still can learn some things, but I really wanted to have a conversation around the community and the church, because I personally have had multiple friends who grew up in the church, who are gay or lesbian or trans, and they want to have a relationship with God. They want to have a relationship with their church family. But what they've been taught is that what they are is not okay. Mm-hmm. And so I feel like I can't even begin to understand how that must feel for someone. So I really have been wanting to have that conversation of how does one reconcile the two identities. But before we even get there, I was going to ask, what made you create D by G Ministries?
Well, basically just to bridge the gap between people that want to go to church, who feel like they're not accepted in church, and get them to a place where they can worship freely. Get them to a place where they can worship in a judge-free zone. So what I've done with D by G Ministries, I have made it a personal task of mine to get in contact with every church across the country that's radically inclusive. I'm trying to put together a database. So if you're in Kansas, you can go to this database and see what church is actually open and affirming in your area, so that you can go to a place of worship and not be judged. So because that has just happened here in Louisville, it was something that was near and dear to me, because I had to go all the way to California. I moved to California. And that is where I actually began to see what liberation actually looked like in the church. Mm-hmm. And I thought, why not bring that experience right back here to my hometown? Well, where I grew up at, Louisville, Kentucky. Yeah. I'm originally from Odessa, Texas. So, but I had to bring that experience back.
That's a culture shock now.
Yeah.
That's a culture shock. South, Midwest, boom, out West. Woo.
Exactly. So, born in Odessa, Texas, moved to Louisville, Kentucky when my mother got remarried when I was 12. And in 2011, decided to move to California because I was getting married. And when I got there, I didn't have to mask who I was. I would get up every Sunday morning and put on a 4 to 6 inch heel, beat my face, and get up there and direct a choir and teach music and lead praise and worship for me to get out of church, peel all that off, and get what you see now, somebody in basketball shorts, a stud, basically, I guess, if you want the label on it. Yeah. So I was living a double life. And so I didn't really experience liberation in the church until I moved to California. Mm-hmm. And so I said, everyone, because I believe in what I've been taught and what is in my spirit, is that all people matter to God. So if all people matter to God, we should be able to walk into any church and be able to worship freely. Because the Bible says worship in spirit and in truth, and worship freely in church. But if I have to worry about if somebody's going to look at me and not look at my wife because she's a femme, but I'm a stud, and they looking at me upside my head like, how does she have the nerve to raise her hands? Mm-hmm. So I wanted to bring that experience back to Louisville, Kentucky, and I want to share that experience with people across the country. So that's how it came about. Yeah,
I think that's a great thing that you got to experience that, and then you want other people to have that experience as well in their lifetime. One thing stood out to me, though. You said you want a church that were affirming. And I would like to know, what's the difference between acknowledging, right, someone's identity versus affirming their identity?
Okay. The difference is basically when you look at me, 9 times out of 10, when you look at me and you see me in the street, you can acknowledge that I'm a gay woman, a lesbian.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
When you affirm who I am, basically you're saying I accept you for whatever it is that you are. So I don't have to worry about you judging me because I wear a button down to church versus wearing a shirt. I'm affirming you. I accept you. Acknowledging is totally, we acknowledge that there are Black men and there are white men, but affirming who they are in those spaces is totally different. It's a totally different situation.
Yeah, I agree. I think, I think a lot of the issues that we run into deal with, people just acknowledging that people are people. People have their own opinions. People think differently. People do things differently. There's always, there's more than one way to skin a cat. That's how the cliche goes. Mm-hmm. And that's what everybody, everybody thinks different, does things different. And, that's hard, especially when we say, somebody's sexuality and when you bring church into it, because a lot of people would, especially with different denominations, some are less formal and some are extremely formal. And what I mean by that is you have some where they believe and they are hard, like they're not moving. Look, you got to come in looking a certain way. I'm serious.
Yeah. Like, no, I know you're serious. They're very restrictive. They're very restrictive.
Like there's no in between, because if you come in that church dressed any type of way, they'll look at you all kinds of crazy. Mm-hmm. And that's just one of the turnoffs already, because you like, you mean I can't? Oh, we talk about coming as you are all the time, but you telling me if I come in here in a loose fit, you know what I'm saying, something that's comfortable to me, I'm out of place, and you making me feel out of place because you keep turning around looking at me. I'm looking forward. I'm trying to, enjoy what's going on up front. But it's crazy, like the first step I think everybody needs to understand is just to acknowledge people for like you being human beings. I feel like that's being lost because, everybody always thinks that we're not robots. People have emotions. People like what they like. And, we just starting to get away from that. And, a lot of people ain't living their truth as well. So that's a whole nother can of worms.
And I was going to make a comment, and I don't know if it's going to be controversial, but
tell me how you feel. What's going on?
I feel like some of that though is because, how can I word it? I think that there are not all Christians, but I think that there are some Christians or religious people who are more concerned with being a better Christian than the next person than they are with their own relationship with whoever they believe in, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, specifically with Christians, God,
That's definitely a true statement. I've witnessed it. Being raised in the Missionary Baptist Church, doing ministry in the Missionary Baptist Church, it is definitely who's paying their tithes and who's doing this and who's doing that. Well, I paid for this and I paid for that. And that's not really what we've come to the house of God for. We've come to have a relationship with God, but we've come so mesmerized or so in debt to the building that we forget the reason why we're actually in the building, which is to serve God. So I tell people all the time, if you're not working on your relationship with God, then going to church is not going to help you anyhow, because that's just
I agree.
So it is a competition. I see it all the time. It's definitely a competition.
Okay. So I'm like, that's not just me making that up.
No, people in there being very bourgeoisie. You know what I'm saying? Like, I know what I put in today. What you put in today.
Yeah. But like I said, it's not all people, right? It's just those special few who do that. So how do you feel like a church, beyond just the pastor or minister, how can a church foster an environment that is affirming to someone who's a part of the LGBTQ+?
We first want to show what true love really is.
Okay.
I don't have to know you to love you, because God says that we should love regardless. He ministered to everybody, the poor, the rich, and mainly in the New Testament, all of his sermons were based towards those people who were poor, underprivileged, in slavery. So it shows that this is a gospel or a message for the whole people, all the people of God. So in order to do that, you have to show people how to love first. And I think that's where we get it confused. We don't know how to just love genuinely from our heart. We see love as giving gifts, doing all these other things. But how do you truly, truly love somebody? And what that means is meeting them wherever they are.
Yeah.
If they walk in the church and, you know, in our church, you can walk in there in jeans and a t-shirt and we're going to dap you up and say, come on, let's do it. You know, that's how my pastor would even get up there and preach in a t-shirt and jeans and his Timbs. And because, I mean, he's a lot younger than me, but that's just because we want people to know that you are included. So when you walk through that door, if you can show through love, through giving a dap, a hug in this day and age, because of the pandemic, you know, you doing this and all, you know, you getting daps and all the other stuff. But if you can show with your eyes that we are truly happy that you are here today, that's where it starts.
Most definitely. And, you know, I agree with that, you know, and a lot of things that people deal with, like, you know, coming as they are, wearing what they're wearing, you know, like I was asked this question in an interview. And I never realized, like, you know, being in the church over the years, like, I answered it correctly, but I didn't realize I was answering it correctly when she said, who's the most important person in the church as far as when it comes to when somebody comes in, you know, from off the street, who's the most important person? I said to myself, I had to sit there and think for a minute. And then my answer was the usher, or whomever is the first person at the door holding the door, because depending on how that dialogue goes at the door, and how formal of a place you're in, if somebody talks a little crazy to you at the door, you know what? Don't worry about it. I know what I need to be. I'm leaving. And then, you know, that does happen, and, you know, in different places, and, you know, you just gotta be open-minded about it. You know, just because you don't understand something doesn't mean you should all the way shut it down, because maybe you don't know what that person's going through. And that's a lot of things. That's a lot that, you know, that's a problem, I would say, that a lot of people don't think. They only think about what they got going on. They wouldn't ever think about what this person's been through or what they had to go through to get there. You know, it's unfortunate, but it does happen a lot.
I think that in general, though, it's hard to unlearn what you've been taught all your life. Even, I mean, like it is. I'm just saying, like,
I agree. It's deep, because if your parents put it in you at a young age, like, this is the way you need to think, this is the way you need to go about life, this, that, and the third, and they give you like how it's supposed to go, then you start living life, you be like, you know, it was good that you showed me that. I understand. I'm gonna do my own thing. Then it just turns into, you know what I'm saying? You just gotta stay the course. Do what makes you feel right. That's the main thing. But you know, a lot of people living to please other folks, and then that just turns into a whole conundrum.
It does. And I was going to give an example actually before I ask the next question. So I have a close friend of mine who, I don't know if they label themselves at this point, but they date women, and she is a woman, and she is a PK. And
could you elaborate, please?
A preacher's kid, sorry.
Thank you.
And her family, I mean, they're in church every day, and that's just been her life. And she's 26, but her and I have some very frustrating conversations, because if you were to close your eyes and talk to her, you would think that you were talking to one of my granny's church sisters, not a Black gay woman. And so it's interesting, because we actually had a conversation recently where she told me that she would never sit under a gay pastor. And she said it's the equivalent of her sitting under a pastor that drinks alcohol. I gave the same looks. You know, I think a lot of times people get caught up in whatever has been interpreted for them in the word. And I think she is one of those people. And unfortunately, like I just said, it is very hard to unlearn something you have been taught all of your life. And so it's sad to hear someone who this is who they are, but they don't know how to reconcile those two identities, basically.
She does realize that you know, pastors are people too, right? Like, you know, like, people have lives outside of, you know, the church. So if you just happen to see the passed out wine tasting somewhere, you go, oh no, I can't come back here no more. Huh?
I guess not.
But you know what? And it's very true. Some people are not able to reconcile it, pull it together. I'm a PK kid too. My daddy's was a pastor. But here's the funny thing. He accepted me before my mother. When I came out, he was like, okay, so all right. where's she at? You know, can we meet the girl?
Yeah.
What's happening? You know, and my mother was like, what are you talking about? You know, what are you doing? Like, this is not the way. And then she couldn't say, this is not the way that I taught you, because she never taught me anything about it. She always taught me to love and respect everyone that I came in contact with, because you don't know what those people may be going through on that day. So she couldn't say that's what I've been taught, because it's not what I've been taught. I knew that I had read in the Bible that, quote unquote, it's an abomination. But I was thinking, that's Old Testament. That can't be applying to me right here and right now. That can't be applying to me. So it is very hard to reconcile the both. But the one thing that I say all the time, you know, when you deal with churches that are struggling with inclusion, when it comes to the LGBTQ community, they struggle with that inclusion. But you better hope that it's inclusion, because guess what? If it's exclusion, a lot of y'all not gonna make it.
Yeah.
And that's just honest.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people are not gonna make it. The people that are pointing the fingers, the people that can't separate it, people can't understand that we do serve a progressing God, that He just not gonna leave us back in the day, and not understanding translation down throughout the years. You have to realize that the Bible has been translated time over and over and over and over again, and those words mean different things in different communities, different cultures, and now in a different age, they mean different things. So you have to put everything in a perspective. But some people can't pull the two. She would live a double life, and then will get to the end of her life and feel unfulfilled, because she wasn't able to see who she, you know, able to live out the purpose in the body that God placed her in, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I teach Sunday school from time to time at my church, and the underlying, you know, foundation that I always say at the end of the day is that, you know, everybody interprets everything differently. I always usually end after I, you know, read, and then I'll give my summary of what I just read. I always say that's how I interpreted what I just read. Now, does anybody else have anything else they want to say about it, or what they got from it? Because, you know, you can see it one way and then somebody sees it another way. Everybody in that room probably saw it all a different way. And then some people may agree with me and some people may not. And that's just the reality of it. But your father, we need to have more people like that in the church to be more proactive when it comes to, oh, this is what I like, or this is my way of thinking, and be more accepting. You don't push people away. You need to be more embracing of individuals, of what they bring, you know, and who they are. And that's the issue, because a lot of people, to things that they're not as educated on, the first instinct is to be, oh no, no. You mean no?
About what they don't understand. So one of the things that I use in my couples counseling is this, and it's very clear. You can use it in every area of your life. Be curious, not critical. You may not understand it, but let's ask questions. Let's have a discussion about it. Why do you feel like it's okay? Don't just judge me and put me and send me to hell now. I'm still living. Let's get some understanding here.
I really don't want to derail us, but I do have a question, because I am not a frequent churchgoer. Like, I grew up going to church, but I'll be honest, a lot of the judgment that my family received for different reasons, I think it turned me off to church. Like, I've always enjoyed gospel music, and that's the one part about church I do miss, is the music. I think it was the judgmental part of it all. But my question is, does it explicitly state that if you are gay, that this is a sin? I've heard all these different stories and things like that, but does it explicitly state that is a sin? Because I don't know that it does.
Well, in the book of Leviticus and in Genesis, it does speak to that effect, but you have to realize what was going on in that time. In that time, you had kings, you had pharaohs that would take young boys with them on excursions and have sex with them. So they were basically men having sex with young boys. That is the abomination.
Gotcha. So pedophilia.
Basically.
Right.
So now here we are in 2022, and people are still saying, but of course that's wrong. But back then, that's what they were doing. That's the reason why it was that's the reason why it was spoke upon the way that it was spoken at that time, because that's what they were doing. You know? So
most definitely. But like, I mean, that just goes back to like the main thing is that people make the place. Like, a lot of people lose like that whole understanding that the people that are in a place of worship or a place of work, the people that are there make the place. So if you're feeling uncomfortable, you know what I'm saying, and you don't feel like you belong in the space, those people aren't being as proactive as they need to be. Everyone wants to say that, oh, I'm holy, all this, that, and the third. But at the end of the day, if you're not being proactive to help the person beside you feel more at home, then what exactly are you? You know what I'm saying? Are you really what you say you are? But a lot of
Yeah.
people wouldn't want to face themselves in the mirror and look at that and question themselves to really think, oh, I know I'm doing everything right. I tithe I tithe here. I give them, more than 10% of my checks every time I get them. So it can't be me. It's them. They're the problem. Huh? No, that's not it.
Yeah, it's very kind of upside down, and that is the reason why. And I was reading a book the other day, and it was talking about how the decline and how church attendance is steadily decreasing in the traditional church, and churches like affirming and radically inclusive churches are on the rise. And the reason that is so is because on the radically inclusive side, we're not just accepting you, we're not just opening from you if you're just gay, so now we're just this gay church. We're accepting of everyone, white, black, whatever it is that you look like, whatever it is that you may have gone through, we're just accepting, and we're not judging you with where you are. The thing is, when you go to the church, and I come in, and my husband, I've been married for 10 years, and now the pastor knows that my husband deals with drugs, and we've been having financial difficulties, and he may have shared it to the deacon. So now y'all looking at us upside our head when we come in here. That's not a place that you feel welcome to worship, even if you're heterosexual. But because they're so judgmental, and what has happened is Christians have done, we are so good at putting on a facade. We're so good at faking it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I can fake it on Sunday morning. I can be holier than thou on Sunday, but when I get home, I'm beating my wife. When I get home, I'm drinking. When I get home, I got a whole nother family that I'm taking care of. We're so good of making everything look good that we don't even know what real church is anymore.
So what would you say, what are some things that could be done? Oh, this is a question for everyone, and I'll probably answer too after I hear y'all, because y'all are so educated. This is beautiful.
Yeah. You're doing Sunday school, sir. You might have an answer.
Right.
Oh no, I'm just a man. That's why I tell people all the time, I'm just a man. But what are some things we could do, in the specifically in a church setting to make people feel more welcome? Sexuality or not, just as human beings in general, come into a place of worship. What are some things that we can do, or you believe that we can do, to put in place to help people feel more at home?
I think it starts again, like you said earlier, with the ushers, the doorkeepers. That's the very first scripture that I ever memorized was Psalms 84:10. And it says, "For a day in thy courts is better than 1,000, but I'd rather be a doorkeeper in the house of my God than to dwell in the tents of wickedness."
Yeah.
So that was the very first scripture that I ever learned, because my mother was over the usher board, so she was gonna make me be an usher. Although I was a singer, I was like, I don't want to be no doorkeeper. Why I got to be on the door? I want to be up there.
Junior boy, yeah.
So I believe that if the ushers are equipped with smiling, loving, not that look they give you when you walk in, if you looking a little different, if you don't have on a suit, or if your stockings are white and you got on black, whatever it is, you know what I mean? Yeah. Or if you're still wearing stockings, because now they don't even wear stockings no more.
I was gonna say, yeah. So
if you on stockings, they looking at you all strange. It is all about accepting people where they are. It's all about teaching your flock, teaching your church that all people matter to God, no matter what. And I mean that, not just no matter if they are black or white, no matter their social status, no matter how much money they make, no matter what is going on. Teach people to know that God is an inclusive God, and he loves everybody. Whether you believe on him or in him or not, he is a God that loves all. And he provides for us that way. So when we learn to actually take on the heart of God, because the Bible is very clear when it says, if your heart's not right, if your heart's not right, then you may as well, you can hang it up anyway. You're not gonna go anywhere. I would say. So you got to get your heart right. You have really got to do some soul searching, and I think what that comes at, and you look at yourself in the mirror, and you say, I'm a pretty good person, but I deal with this. I've dealt with I've dealt with ministers who are really good people, but they're liars. They're manipulators. And they really want God to help them through that thing. Those are the people that I'm drawn to. Because although you're all those things, you're still giving all you got to the people that come through that door. So I think it goes in your teaching. And then you have to be led by the right leadership.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
Gotta have good leadership.
Daisha?
Huh?
Yeah. So Daisha, what are your thoughts on that?
So I'm gonna come from the social work / mental health perspective.
Okay, I like that.
Here you go.
No, well, so here's the thing. I work with kids. I don't know if I've already said that on the podcast or not, but elementary through high school. And I've worked with a good bit of kids who have come out to me. And I was the first person they ever came out to, whether that was gay, lesbian, trans, bi, anything and everything, basically. And there were like a few of those kids who were growing up in the church and they were really struggling with that. But they didn't I even had one girl crying to me saying she felt like she was a bad Christian. And it was like in certain moments like that, I didn't know, I knew how to counsel her from the book but I didn't know how to bridge that gap with the book because like I said, I'm not a frequent churchgoer. So I think it would be helpful for pastors, ministers, church sisters, deacons, whoever's in the church to start to open up more to the mental health community and encouraging their churchgoers to seek help when they need it. Because I think sometimes people feel like they'll take all their problems to God and that's it. But God placed therapists in the world for a reason. You know what I mean? We're trained to help you. And I'm not saying you can't pray because that can be a part of your coping tools, but you need other things to help you. So I think, of course, setting up that environment that is affirming and welcoming, but also encouraging people, because that's hard. That's hard, even if you weren't super religious, to come out to your family sometimes. So I think encouraging them to seek help if it's there, especially if you're a kid. Most schools at this point have a mental health professional. So
yeah, but I think the issue that we face predominantly today more than ever is that households are really, everybody's household isn't the same. I wouldn't even say that was an issue. It's probably been going on forever. It's just been more, eyes brought to it. It's like, for instance, I had two parents in my household. Not everybody has two parents in the household. So, you know what I'm saying? There's going to be different things being said if there's only one person taking care of a child versus two people taking care of a child. Or even for, to even be on a grander scale, if they have, their parents, so grandparents coming into play or godfather, godmother, all this. Some people don't have none of that. That's a real thing out here, and what's, I think, being lost in translation is that, Daisha, you said you felt that you needed to know the book in order to help them. Sometimes the main thing, in my opinion, all people need to do is listen, because people are telling you stuff indirectly sometimes, and we just don't hear it. We just glaze over it because we're thinking, oh, it's nothing big, we talking, but that didn't seem like nothing big. But if people actually take the time to listen to what is being said, I feel like that would make that much of a difference. Because if somebody's listening to you and they catch something so small that you said you didn't realize you said it, it makes you start to ease up a little bit more, be more comfortable around said person, or feel more comfortable in your skin and be more confident about what you need to say. Because if you said it, you may have said it with no confidence, but the fact that somebody heard you say that and listen to that, that can make the difference. So, I mean, that's the way I look at it. People just need to listen more. We don't do enough listening. Everybody just,
And I agree with you. I agree with you wholeheartedly. And even from a mental health standpoint, I tell people all the time, and this is what I said in the pulpit. I'll sit out here in the front. I've said it everywhere that I go. Trouble don't last always, but trauma can.
Yeah.
Okay. So unless you address that trauma, it's going to forever be embedded in you, and it's going to find its way out somewhere. So however it finds its way out is upon you, but you have got to get you a good therapist. I tell people, me and Jesus are good. We cool. We we talk all the time. Like that's my dog. Me and JC, we get down like that. You understand? But for real, like I see a therapist, and I am and I do couples therapy, and I do life coach. I see a therapist because there's some things that and there's nothing wrong right now. there's nothing wrong in my life. I feel like I've dealt with some past trauma, but it's good to just go and talk to somebody. Just to, it's just good to just kind of pour it out. You know what I mean? So
Yes.
I do believe that, I think that one of the blessings that the children at my church have is that our minister that is over the youth, she's a counselor at one of the schools. So she is able, when those children come to her and they do, they come out and they tell them of unnatural things, they feel these things, she is able to give them kind of a level of a biblical aspect that doesn't too much mess with what their family may be thinking or feeling, but she's able to kind of give them something to let them know that they are okay and they can come back and talk to her about anything. So I think that that is major, because what happens is that we forget that when you are gay and when you are trying to fit in somewhere as a child, that's hard. So then you take on stuff like being bullied, because you may feel like you're in the wrong body. So you don't want to be a boy. You really do feel like you are a girl, or vice versa. So I think that needs to be something that all educators even take up some training on, to how to deal with that, because it's happening in schools every day. Kids are coming more and more comfortable, or they're feeling more and more stifled, or like they're going to do something harmful to themselves. They got to tell somebody.
Yeah.
When children, we discuss, kids feeling a particular type of way about, liking the same sex. Is there an age that, you feel as if though they would know? Or, because a lot of people will say nowadays that, oh, my child was supposedly born a specific way. And it's like, how do you know your child was born that way? They don't know that yet. Because it's like, it's interesting. I mean, when the child is born, they haven't, these are hand babies. The child is not, you know what I'm saying?
I just had this debate. Same friend.
I'm trying to understand, Daisha.
She was like, that you can't be born gay. I said, so okay, so let me digest that. So you mean to tell me that someone would wake up one day and choose to have all of these marks against them? You're choosing to be a person of color. You're choosing to be a woman. You're choosing to be gay on top of all of that? Who would choose that? And I said, secondly, when you're 6 years old, no, you don't have the language to say, hey, I'm trans, or hey, I'm gay or a lesbian, whatever, but you know how you feel and you know who you like. You just don't have the language to put a label on it. Did you not have crushes in elementary school?
I feel she was super fly. She was super fine. Like fourth grade, I thought she was the finest thing ever. I'm just saying.
I mean, Daisha, the only thing, I have no argument with what you're saying. The only thing I was just curious about is like, you have parents that have these hand babies and they're like, my child is this. The child hasn't, you know what I'm saying? It's still a hand baby. Yes, I'm dead serious. It's a real thing. I'm serious. It's just like, you think I'm playing? I'm serious. I am so serious right now. Child is a couple months and it'd be like, my child is this. I'm telling you, look, I'm serious.
That is as common, but I understand what you're saying. Like if a kid is in elementary school, like I said, I don't think they have the language, but they know who they have a crush on.
I mean, that's why conversations are had. Just like, what I said earlier, you just have to listen. Because certain things, once you hear, if you listen well enough to what's being said, you can start to gather an idea. And eventually, if you are like Minister Sean said a moment earlier, you know what I'm saying? Don't be scared, be a little bit more curious. You should sit down and have that conversation. If you're listening, you'll hear it. But
and I do think that when you get into that situation, like for instance, my brother is gay as well. So I know my mother felt some type of way having two children that are gay. Like I know my mom was just like, what did I do wrong?
Yeah, that's the first thing.
To have both of her children gay. And then my stepfather had 3 children, so it's 5 of us all together. And I honestly don't believe that me and my mother still never really had the conversation. Because even when I would have trouble with my girlfriends where I'll be going through something, she's like, I can't talk about that because I don't know what that means. I don't even know why you've been feeling that and all this other stuff. But it wasn't until I got pregnant when I was 29 years old and after I had my son, her only grandchild, that she let me off the hook. Like she was just like, do whatever you're gonna do, girl. And then now, if I want to talk to her about relationships, same-sex relationships, she's all about, well, no, my thought process is this, and and I think about it like this. But I felt like me getting pregnant, like that was her whole thing. Like, I want to have a grandbaby. I want grandbabies. And when I gave her this grandchild, it was like, she was just like, okay. And now he's 14. And now they don't even talk to me very often. They just call me when they need it. It's them against me. You know, that's what she wanted.
Yeah.
You know, so
yeah.
it just depends on what's kind of happening. And then on the situation of even being born gay, who would choose this life?
My point exactly.
Who would honestly choose it? Because there were times that's the whole reason why I got pregnant. I was trying to fit in this life because I probably would have never gotten pregnant. I was trying to, and then I was straddling the fence. You know, I had a boyfriend and like 2 or 3 girlfriends, and I ended up pregnant.
Oh.
So, but I knew, you know what I mean? And I just, you know, I'm just as transparent as they come. But I knew that once I had this child, I knew once I got pregnant, and I knew that I was pregnant, I knew that I didn't want to be with a man.
Mm-hmm.
I knew that.
Oh yeah.
I was gonna say maybe parents, when their kid does come out to them, maybe they go through a grieving process of like having to grieve what they thought would have been. I don't know.
Well, the problem, I think
yeah.
the problem that happens is that, as I'm not a parent, I can't really speak from a parent's perspective, but I can speak on what I've seen and how parents act. It's one of those things where a parent I've seen parents map out their child's entire life in their mind, or have
That's
an
what I
idea
mean.
of what they need to do.
Yeah.
And if they don't do this, then all of a sudden it just breaks down, the house falling down, the house on fire. Oh Lord, the house is going down. Mm-hmm. So now it's just like, yeah, I don't know what you want me to do, because you're not helping me fulfill my vision of what I wanted you to do. So then it turns into, it's not your life. You understand this, right? You can help me, guide me through my life, but I'm not living for you. I'm living for myself. You know what I'm saying? But at the same time, you know, at the end of the day, family is family, of course. But, you know, people have a hard time, or parents, most parents, some parents, not all parents, have a hard time differentiating between them living their life and trying to control their child's life. A lot of people be trying to live through their kids, and it's extremely evident. The pressures that some of these kids have on themselves nowadays is extremely unhealthy. It's like they're trying to live for their parents. Like, I got to do this, or it's just not going to be good. It's not, and it's not what I'm saying. There's so much pressure.
Yeah.
And it just comes to a head eventually.
I agree, because I felt like there was pressure on me to do certain things. I was 29 years old, pregnant, been on my own since I was 18, 19 years old. And I was afraid to tell my parents I was pregnant. 29 years old, making $70K a year at that particular time, and was afraid to tell my parents that I was pregnant because of one thing. My mother got married. My mother planned both of her pregnancies. She stopped taking her birth control on purpose. Her and my dad planned it. She did everything the right way. And I did not want to disappoint her.
Mm-hmm. What is the right way?
That was pressure that I put on myself. She never said that to me, but it was the way that it was like she implied it in everything that she said to me, the way that she was raising me. So you put this pressure on yourself. And then I finally was just like, girl, come on now, you're 29, get ready to be 30. What are you doing? What's she gonna do? What can she say? You take care of your own household. You know, so I think that we put that stuff on ourselves, and then our parents, they feel like failures when we don't do exactly what they envision for us to do. Mm-hmm. And so that becomes an issue.
My last question, actually, you kind of said it. I was going to ask, when did you experience that aha moment after, you know, getting pregnant that allowed you to accept that you were gay, but then also that you're Christian, and reconciling those two identities?
It actually didn't happen until my son was probably about 2 or 3. I moved to California, and I experienced a whole different world. Like, I was a part of the LGBTQ community at the time, of course, but I had an issue with trans people, and so I said, "How you gonna be?"
I see what you're saying.
You know what I'm saying?
We have a problem.
Yeah. So when I got to California, I was educated. Mm-hmm. On a lot of stuff, and I was able to get involved with groups, and I don't know if you know who Bishop Yvette Flunder is, but I was a part of a church that was up under her, Affirming Church Ministries. And if you don't know who she is, Bishop Yvette Flunder is the woman that actually recorded "Thank You" the song that Mary redid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about?
Oh, I know what song you're talking about. Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Walter Hawkins wrote the song, but she's the one that actually recorded it for the very first time. And then it kind of blew up, went really, really big. So now she is over churches all across this country. A gay woman, been with her partner 30 years, been with her wife for 30 years. And now she has all these churches popping up over the country up under her umbrella that's based out of San Francisco. So I was able to go to a lot of her conferences. I was able to have some one-on-ones with her staff. And I realized that I had a gift. And my gift was being gay, because I can offer a person like you or a person like anyone something that they're not going to experience in the church, because I know what I know what it feels like to be on the outside looking in.
Yeah.
I know what it feels like to have to fake it to make it. So, you know, we have different, I don't know if you guys have ever heard of Exodus International. Have you ever heard of it?
No, I haven't.
Look up Exodus International in your free time. And what Exodus International is, it was a ministry that was basically built on curing gay and lesbian children.
Gotcha. I felt like I had heard about it, but I wasn't 100% sure. But after you said that, yes.
Yes. And basically what they did was they would have you come into these classes in these groups. They had conferences. I mean, they had thousands and thousands of people flowing through here. But what they came up with when they shut their doors a few years back was that this is something that you're born with. And to put this type of psychological pressure on God's people is unnecessary and it's inhumane.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's interesting too, though, because a lot of people think that these conflicts that are being had, you know, are issues like strictly within the church. But I know we're for this sake of argument, we're discussing how it is in the church. But outside of the church, like not too far away, because it could be a problem inside as well, is that amongst individuals whom, you know, are homosexual, you have them that say, oh, that person is a little bit too flamboyant, I don't mess with them, because I'm conservative, but they are flamboyant to the point that, oh no, that's just not okay. And it's like, hold on now, you're supposed to be understanding and just as proactive and try to educate yourselves on maybe why do they feel as if though they need to express themselves a little bit more than you. It's just interesting because it's like levels to everything, and it's like in between, and you know, a lot of people get lost and not thinking about, okay, yeah, educate the outside, but sometimes the inside also needs to be educated as well, because there's issues that are going on where it's just like, I don't agree with how they act, but it's whatever. I guess but you know, it's just certain things that it just goes back to what we've been discussing, you know, as far as listening goes, as far as people needing to be more proactive when it comes to educating themselves and not being like, oh, I don't mess with them or because they act in a certain way. And it's just like, no, at the end of the day, you need to try to understand. And if you don't agree with it, I mean, that's fine too. But you shouldn't be acting as if you, like we stated earlier, you should be acknowledging them as human beings first. And if you don't agree, that's fine. But a lot of people, what they don't know, the first instance, oh no, you wrong. Do better. That's not right, and that's not okay. Huh?
I mean, I think a lot of it is projection too. I think a lot of projection
we talking.
It could be internalized homophobia. It could also just be people who have their own struggles going on and they don't want to highlight themselves, so they want to highlight someone else. I mean, that's just how I see it, because if you are comfortable in who you are and you're stable and good in life, you're not going to spend your time looking for people to pick on. I mean, you just aren't. You are not going to do that. That's what I mean. Like, you have to be a very unhappy person to sit there, go to church, and you got your mouth turned up looking at different people. Like, yeah. One thing I wanted, because we're going to put your information in the description box below so people can find you. Okay. But I was going to ask, you said something about a database for like affirming churches. Is that something that already exists, or you're still working on that?
I'm still working on that right now. There is one that is in place. You can go to gaychurch.org, and churches will pop up. But what I found though is that some of those churches, they're not really radically inclusive.
Okay.
They'll accept you, they'll love on you, but you can't be in a position of leadership. So
Oh, that's where they limit you.
They limit you. So I'm working on a different database where if you feel that God has called you to preach, you can come on and go to this church and you can fulfill that calling. You can be in a position of leadership. Or they say that, what I've come across here lately and what I'm finding is that they won't pray over your children, or like, let's say if you want to get your child blessed or whatever, you want to bring them, they won't do it in front of the congregation.
So how is that inclusion? You just get to sit there and look pretty?
That's my whole thought process. So I'm saying this is not really an inclusive database.
They just want their money. That's what it is.
And that is where my whole celebrated, not tolerated thing came from. Because if you look at churches today, a lot of the music that we sing have been written and produced by gay people. So we'll pimp them out for their gifts. Pimp me out for my gift. And I've turned down people. I've turned down churches. Can you come and teach a song? Can you do this? Can you do that? But we need you to wear a choir robe. Well, why not? How come they're not wearing choir robes? So it's going to be a no.
Yeah.
So you're not going to just tolerate me. You're not going to just put me in a box. So that's where my whole celebrated, not tolerated thing came from, because sometimes we are being pimped out for our gifts. You're singing James Cleveland, you're singing Kurt Carr, you're singing Richard Smallwood, you're singing all these people's songs on not just once a month, but every single Sunday. And these men are gay.
Yeah. It kind of reminds me. Oh, go ahead. I was just going to say, it kind of reminds me of racism in a sense. It's like they want the palatable Black. They want the palatable gay person, not who they are in all form. Like, you know what I mean? They don't want you to just be you and just exist. They're like, well, you can sit there, but okay.
Yeah.
And that goes back to my point earlier when I said that there's issues in everything that so-called have the inside, like the group that people believe is supposed to be a group collectively together has conflict. So when we talk about the LGBTQ community, of course, there's conflict inside. When we talk about Black people in general, there's conflict inside. And then when we talk about everybody getting along together, there's conflict inside. It's really interesting how we focus in on certain things and we don't realize that, oh, they're this, they're the problem. Oh, they're the problem. And then all of a sudden, so-called the same person you say, oh, we're thinking the same, you have an issue with them as well at that point. And it just continues, just the ongoing perpetual cycle that never ends. It's just really, because people aren't listening, people aren't being proactive about trying to change anything. And it's really sad. Yeah. And it's just, that's what I see.
People aren't open anymore either. So, they're very close-minded, and it's very, it's sad to watch. And I battled with a lot of things because of my son. I didn't want him to be talked about because his mama looked like a boy. So that bothered me for a little while. So, but he said to me, he was in the 3rd grade, and I never forget it. He was like, it's cool to me. You go get our haircuts together. We get our haircuts cut alike. It is what it is. We do us.
That's cute.
You know what I mean? So now that he's 14, like, and y'all, and forgive me, I didn't know what a MILF was. Y'all know what that is?
Yeah, I know.
So my son comes in from being out with his friends all weekend long. They had like a whole summer party of one of his friends, and they told him that I was a MILF. And I said, what is that? And he was like, Mama, you know what it is. And I'm like, no, I don't. But here I am, an old woman, looking the way I look. And his friends are like, hey, your mom can, And I'm like, how inappropriate is that? But at the end of the day, children, they just accept it. That's Devon's mom. They don't see anything about it. And he wasn't ashamed of me. So why should I be ashamed of me?
Yeah.
He never thought twice about his mama being gay, and he's never seen me with a man. I've been married twice and both been to women. He's never seen me with a man, and he's always like, you rolling with us? Like, how, you teenage boys, they want to go do their thing. He's like, Mama, come on, let's go to the game. We going to the game. I'm like, I don't want to go with y'all. He's like, but you the fun parent. Come on. And they want me to go. But I'm said all that to say that children are impressionable. Whatever you put up on them, that's what they're going to take. That's what it's about. So my son is very open. As a matter of fact, one of his friends came out to him at school and he was like, I can't say her name, Mom, but I just want you to pray for her. And I said, I will. He said, because she doesn't know how to tell her parents. And I thought, and he said, and I prayed with her too while we were at school. And I thought, well, I'm doing all right then as a parent, because he even knows that, you know, he's keeping this young lady's secret, but yet he prayed for her. And then he came home and he said, Mom, I can't tell you her name, but you got to pray for her because this is what she's going through. So children definitely look at their parents, and whatever their parents are doing, that's what they're going to do.
Yeah.
Learn behavior.
Just learn behavior. That's how you learn stuff. You have to change what you're doing so that learning that you had doesn't become a generational curse that keeps going generation after generation after generation after you. So we're cutting that right here with my kid, with my son. We're cutting it.
Agreed. Mm-hmm. Justin, you had something?
Oh no, I've said all I need to say.
I agree with everything you said. I honestly feel like that is one of the positives of the newer generation, is that they seem to be a lot more open than older generations as far as this topic goes. They're like in middle school, like, yeah, I'm this. It's fine. So we enjoyed having you today. I felt like I've been enlightened. I'm definitely going to share the information because I feel like it'll be helpful for someone that'll listen.
Oh yeah, most definitely.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So
thank
I
you.
have, oh, go ahead.
I was just saying, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah. So I have been Daisha D.
And it's been Jay Sane.
Join us on Friday at noon.
And always remember to like, comment, and subscribe.
All right.